friends, welcome back to the Inner Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sam Assa, and I'm bringing you a solo cast today. Just to practice speaking from my truth, speaking from my heart, offering you a chance and a space to go into your own inner experience. There's so much gold that I get from interviewing epic speakers on allowing us to open our heart and look at the world in a different way that guides us closer to our own inner experience. But there's also a lot of almost space that I'm wanting to create for you to reflect and go in at the same time as I'm holding space to do it by being here. I don't know if that makes sense. And maybe what I'm trying to create is going to evolve, but I think it starts by me just being here with you, solo. Me and you. It's just me and you. And if you're on your walk right now, if you're on your drive to wherever you're going, it's just me and you. And I really am seeing and understanding the beauty in team, in community, in coming together, in unity, in union. And maybe I could share some of my own aha revelations that I've been having this week around all of that. Because it's been a lot. Actually, I might share that. I wasn't going to share that at all. But here we are, speaking from the heart. And this is what comes out when you speak from the heart. It's like, you're like, oh, okay, we're speaking about that now. And side note, but that's the crux foundation of an authentic conversation, is that there's so much unknown and uncertainty in what's about to happen when you're in an authentic, powerful, real conversation, that you're acknowledging and honoring the truth of the moment without any expectation or attachment of what happens next. And when you do that, you get to say some hard things, you get to say some things that make your palms sweat, that make your heart race. And when it comes from that place of love, authenticity, from your deepest part of your heart and your soul, then it's landed and it's received in that way. If you're coming from a place of fear, of structure, of knowing that you want a certain outcome from what you're about to say, then that's how it comes across. And then often it doesn't land the way that you need it to be heard. So I'm going to go with that analogy right now of, I didn't know that by pressing record, I'm going to be talking about something that makes me feel emotional right now, actually. Because I'm currently in the work of it, and it's really real for me. And that's the idea of letting go of this lone wolf, this idea of coming together, community and union, in squad, in receiving help, in receiving love. And I've been supported by some beautiful, beautiful soul sisters and friends recently, and coming together in sisterhood to heal with the beautiful earth and Pachamama and the medicine that's available. And what really showed up for me was this ability to receive help and love and guidance and support from those around you unconditionally. And the part of me that puts a protection layer over my heart, over myself, just in case, and has a hard time letting it in. I've been saying for years how much I want community and connection, a sense of belonging, and I run from it. And I've spoken about this actually in a podcast with Maddie Moon back in season 2. And we talked about this concept that we're really similar in. It's like saying we want this community and this connection, and yet our bags are packed and we're ready to go the instant that it's available to us. And I've had huge releases this week around the lone wolf mentality, because we're not here to do it alone. And yet the hard time that I've had asking for help, because the moments that I have in the past asked for help, sometimes it can be thrown back on me as if, why didn't you know it? Why didn't you have this all together? Like, why are you still fucking up? Why are you still not got that sorted? And so then it makes me go, don't ask for help until you've got it all together, that you've got this, right? Like, don't share this podcast episode, or don't share this knowledge that you have, or don't share this idea because you haven't worked out the perfectionism of it yet. And so therefore keep it to yourself until that happens. And it's like, fuck, like, where did this come from? Like, I hold myself back in so many ways because I've felt like I need to have it all together before I share the thing. And it's starting to rip apart, and the opening is starting to show its way around, where I'm not here to do this alone, where like I get to reach out my hand and say, can someone please help me? And it's such a beautiful gift. It's such a beautiful thing when you find the people that you can count on, when you find the people that are in your inner circle, your soul fam, if you like, that are there and they've got you, and you don't even need to say the word, that they just feel it and they're there. And I've experienced that recently, and it's been ripping apart so much of my old belief systems and structures that say, no, don't let anyone in, do this yourself, don't trust anyone fully. And it's just the time. I see it everywhere right now, this time for people really wanting to come together, really wanting to come into unity, really wanting to build community, really looking at what matters. And it's really made me reflect on the fact that we're not really in this state of fear of what's happening in the world. We're actually more in a head-to-head battle with the fear of feeling fully. Because this stuff hurts, it's like when we feel this ache and this pain of being in loneliness, or being in self-doubt, or being in where we don't feel relevant, or being in where we feel like we're not loved. Like, that stuff hurts. And it's also at the core and the crux of all of the stuff that we're avoiding. And you would have, if you've been listening to my podcast, you would have noticed that in a lot of different episodes, I've been ripping open with different guest speakers I have. And the most recent one was with Jamie Walrab, when he, and I say his name and it brings up my throat, like, oh God, here we go again. And it's like, it was so transformational for me to move from this place of just coasting along. And he's like, hey, by the way, when you hit record on a podcast, you talk differently, and you want to structure everything, and you're not letting me lead right now, and you want to take control of the conversation, and all of these things. And I was like, oof. And he moved me so deeply into my heart that I decided to explore that. And that's just something that I do. Someone commented recently, or I was sharing with a friend some life decisions I'm making, and she said, I really admire your ability to be so self-aware, but then move on that. She's like, you have this aha moment, and then you do something about it. I haven't always been like that at all. I was definitely someone who revolved constantly. I would get to a point. It was almost like this, those revolving doors that you just like can't. You need to like kind of. It just keeps going round and round unless you step out and move into a place, and you're like, maybe I'm gonna get trapped in the fucking door, but I've just got to step out. And I definitely wasn't that person that chose to evolve. I was the one that chose to revolve by noticing that, like, ooh, I've reached my edge. This bit feels scary right here, so I'm just going to stop. And I got pretty fed up with it around me, sweeping shit under the rug. And I think that's what it taught me. It's like, it's not even a big profound thing that you need to take. It's often the small things that are holding you back from actually evolving. And I remember so clearly, a beautiful example of this was I was in Canada living with two incredible humans that I deeply love. And she's one of my most beautiful, cherished friends. She sat with me having a whole experience, and she sat with me and she said, what do you need to do? But I needed to send this text message to someone, and I was so scared about it. And she said, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here with you until you send the text message. I was like, okay. And all I needed to do was send the text message. And typically the old Sam at that point in time would have went, that feels too hard. I'm not sure what the response I'm going to get. I've cared too much about what they think, so I'm just not going to send it. And that means you revolve. So then you don't get to evolve in that moment. You evolve back to old ways and old habits and old patterns, and something else is going to show up until you choose the evolve way, until you choose to get out of the revolving door. But in that moment, I chose to get out of the revolving door. But by sending a text message that seemed so simple, it felt so hard. And it brought up all of these feelings of, what happens if I get rejected? What happens if they, no longer like me? What happens if I'm not loved? What happens if I'm not worth anything? Like all of these things that it brings up within us as to why we don't do something. And she sat with me until I sent the text message. And I sent the text message through the phone across the room. And in that moment went, oh, it actually doesn't feel that bad. Like, oh, actually, I don't really care about what they think. It was just having to move through that process of feeling. And I share that example because I feel like we're in this head-to-head. I mean, constantly. I think we're constantly in this head-to-head with feeling fully. And the why as to why we're not living life the way that we want to live, why we're not showing up as to who we really believe that we could be, or why we're not being the person that we want to be in life, is because we're scared of feeling fully. And then you have somebody who shows up and is willing to feel, and then that evokes feelings out in you that you're uncomfortable with. So then you avoid people, you avoid certain situations or conversations because that makes you feel uncomfortable. And I get it. I get it. I'm just really fortunate that I chose to surround myself with really key fucking people. I was speaking about this with a work colleague recently around, like, who you surround yourself with is so key. And if you're not really living a life or feeling so inspired by the person that you are, then there's a hot chance that the people around you aren't doing that either. And that you get to choose who is in your circle of influence, because it's so important. It shapes who you are. So we're in this let's go back to, we're in this head-to-head battle with feeling. And the way in which we get deeper into our own inner experience, into our inner truth, is by having the courage to feel fully. What does that feel like? Well, that feels like, if I go with the example that I wasn't going to give, that I'm giving this week around the lone wolf, it means that I had to experience what it felt like to feel so supported and loved by not saying anything, but having people around me that really love me offer support when I needed it the most, and actually receiving that. And then it meant that I had to go through all of the grieving and the dying. I call it dying because we go through these death rebirth cycles of all of the stories and narratives that I had been clinging on to prove evidence as to why I shouldn't let that happen. And then I go through the realization that that was the only block that was actually showing up in my life, that was blocking me from the very thing that I said that I want. And that I had to start to feel and forgive all of the ways that I wasn't allowing it in. I hope this is making sense, because it seems so simple, but I don't want to play off the simplicity for the way that it feels in the moment. Because I think what people have trouble with is the actual ability to feel in the moment. That is unlocking something so key in your own inner experience and bringing you so much more deeply into who you are, and creating so much more of what you want. Yet we tap out of it because of the way it feels in the moment. And as much as that feeling is temporary, we forget it in the moment. And so I think what I'm here to share in this episode is if I'm holding space for you right now to access more of who you are, I'm not going to slap on a positive quote and say it's going to be this easy, beautiful unraveling because you're sunshine and you're a flower and you get to just expand in the world. Yeah, and doing that is fucking hard. So what you can experience and what often happens is that we fall into ways to distract ourselves from feeling that feeling and delaying the process. And a lot of the conversations that I have with speakers, and a lot of what I really help people to do, is hold their hand in accessing that thing that feels hard in that moment, knowing that it's temporary. And so you might want to escape into TV, into Netflix, you might want to escape into alcohol or drugs, you might want to escape into work or uni or study or things that are going to distract you from feeling the actual thing. But there is literally no way out but through. And I think, going back to what my friend said, you just have this ability to have an aha moment and then take action on it. And I think the thing that's missing in what I do is I do a lot of work in grieving and work in feeling through some really hard things without tapping out. And I'd say that humbly, because there's no other way to describe it. There's no other way out of, there's no quick fix. There's no like shortcut. Anything that you want to expand in life or get better at or be better at or feel more of means that you have to be able to feel, and you have to be able to connect deeply to who you are. And we're not here to feel good, we're here to fully feel. And so because I've touched the depths of heartbreak and grief and afraidness and worthiness and what it feels to feel alone, what it feels to feel anger, and I'm still going, I'm still experiencing all of these things, but because I've touched those things, I can hold people's hand when they're going through their own experience. Because I definitely have not been through what everyone else has been through in their life. And I'm not saying that my life has been any better or worse than anyone else's. But what I'm saying is that whatever we have experienced in life is still connected to an emotion that we can all relate to. And that has often been so suppressed in us because we don't want to feel it, but yet it's so temporary in the moment. And it opens up to such incredibly expanding ways that we don't see possible. And so the only way to edge ourselves deeper into our own inner world, that is essentially creating our external world, is to be able to feel ourselves in that moment. And that means that we may need to feel some things that we've shut down for a lot of years, for maybe a whole life. And that feels really fucking hard. And so as much as I love sharing all of the incredible speakers that I have on this podcast, it's so fucking great. A lot of the questions and curiosity and people that reach out to me still have that same thing of like, hey, like I hear you and I'm having trouble accessing it. I'm having trouble changing my life. I'm feeling a bit lost. I'm feeling a bit stuck. I'm feeling really reactive and I'm wanting to, I just don't know. Like a lot of the answer is just like, I just don't know. And any time that you're saying I just don't know is true, and you get to feel into the I don't know, because there's something beneath the I don't know that doesn't want to be felt. And so I don't know is a protection mechanism from you feeling a thing that feels uncomfortable. And when we're given space, and when we're given like literally being locked up in our homes, we're giving this moment of isolation. We're given moments where we don't distract ourselves. That's where all of the emotions come to the surface. And over the last few years of me being truly connected and committed to the inner experience, I deliberately go into isolation. I deliberately close myself off from the world. I deliberately remove distraction, remove food, remove anything that I can latch and cling onto that's going to allow me to opt out or tap out. And by doing so, you have to feel the emotion. You have to feel your way through it. And so I think that's what's actually going on right now. It's like we can blame whoever we want to blame. We can be hanging on to any chance of things going back to normal, or we could be waiting our life away, waiting until, I'm going to wait until whatever happens next. I'm going to wait until I could go back to my own normal life. I'm going to wait until, like, we're constantly waiting. Like, what the fuck are we waiting for? And I think it's just a constant excuse to not feel what feels uncomfortable. So with that being said, it taught me that the moments of choosing isolation, of choosing to disconnect, of choosing to stop food, of choosing to do these things, taught me to get really radically honest with myself. And so I'm someone who really values honesty, even though I'll fight that sometimes. I will fight my own honesty. I will fight you saw it if you watched it or listened to the podcast with Jamie Woolrab, of me like literally not wanting to go there. Like, I was fighting the fact that I was holding control and holding it all up and holding in my voice, blah, blah, blah. We still fight these things, but I value honesty. And so I really value somebody telling me that stuff, and I'll go there. And after that podcast, the work that I did following that was next level, and really hard and really challenging. And honesty is something that we're so afraid of because of the uncomfortability that it brings up within ourselves, in our nervous system, in what we're not ready to feel. And as much as will continue to reinforce that this ride is our own unique experience, and that we have to edge gently into the unknown of what that feels like and wherever your capacity is at. But at the same time, you have to be fucking honest with yourself. You have to be honest enough to be like, okay, am I avoiding right now, or am I truly at my edge? I think I've explained this before, as in a podcast with London and Justin, as we talked about the yoga of intimacy. It's like, when I was in the yoga of intimacy, that at that moment was my edge. Like, I haven't experienced anything like what that few days felt like being in the yoga of intimacy, because it felt like my nervous system was in surgery. My whole physical body actually felt like it was in surgery. And that was my edge, and that was me pushing my edge. And there was moments where I questioned, should I tap out? Like, am I at my capacity right now? Or do I have a little bit more to crack open? Because when you crack that open, then all of a sudden you've created so much more space, so much more to what you knew. It's the same concept as, everything that you want is on the outside of your comfort zone. It's the same thing. It's like our comfort zone is here, and when we step out and do something that feels uncomfortable, then all of a sudden we've expanded our comfort zone. It's the same as feeling your feelings, the things that feel uncomfortable. It's like your feelings of feeling good and happy and positive, and maybe just a little bit of nervousness, or maybe like a little bit of afraidness, or maybe like a little bit of sadness is like in our comfort zone. But like the real shit is on the outside of our comfort zone. That's there, and that takes a little bit of stretching our nervous system to sit in for a moment of fucking pain. And when we sit in it, then all of a sudden we've stretched our nervous system to be able to feel what that feels like. And so if you're somebody who feels really uncomfortable when somebody has an emotional experience and starts crying in front of you, or starts raging in front of you, then that shows me and tells me that you haven't gotten comfortable with your own inner experience or your own inner emotionality. And so therefore they bring up something in you that you go, I don't know what to do with, I can't handle this. And it's like a hot potato, and you want to throw it back, and you go, shut up, don't talk, we don't have time for this. And this is what we see happening in children. And this is what we see happening in relationships, is that the time that it takes to actually nurture and fully hold a space for somebody's emotionality takes time, and takes space, and takes presence. And we don't have time for that in the world that we're living in. And so people won't actually say how they're actually feeling, right? We see this when you say like, oh, how are you today? People are like, good, thanks. Like, the courage that, and the bravery that it would take to actually tell the truth in that moment is dependent upon, am I going to get rejected? Is this going to erupt something in me that this person's not ready for? And then on the other side of that is somebody is really hesitant to actually ask someone how they're really feeling, because then they go, if they're actually having an experience, firstly, I'm not comfortable with my own emotions to deal with theirs right now. That's out. Secondly, they go, I'm in a fucking hurry right now. And so if they start to erupt on me, then we're in all sorts of situations because I need to get to the shops, or I need to get to work, or I need to get to the thing. And so then we don't actually sit and bother to connect deeply and bother to be able to feel like it's safe to express. Whew, that's huge, right? And then we see this with kids. It's like we get told, especially as young boys, like you get told to stop being a pussy, stop being a little girl, like pull your shit together, stop crying. And as little girls, you get told like, don't be angry, like you shouldn't be angry, you should make sure you smile. Like it's like, I think it's changing. I think more people are becoming so much more conscious in the way that they can connect and really support this. However, if we go back to what everyone can relate to, it's that. And especially from the upbringing up until now. I'm not saying this is, and I hate blanketing it for everyone because, that's not to say I know some freaking amazing mums and dads and parents and people that look after kids in the world that are doing incredible stuff. But, if we look at our own people who would be listening to this podcast now about going back to connecting deeper to our own inner experience, then perhaps we need to remember where we actually came from. We need to go back to a remembering. And that takes us to cultivate and sit with some hard feelings to feel that again, that perhaps we didn't get a chance to feel in the moment that it happened in. Or it's like a reframing or a rewiring of the system. And I say that hesitantly because of the last podcast I did with Johannes, who is Wim Hof instructor, and he talks about like they try and eliminate the language of rewiring and resetting because it's not about that, it's about remembering. And I love that because the recent experience that I had, the remembering of where I came from, the remembering of what's actually there. And when you go to that place, like everything feels okay. Everything feels okay. And so I think the invitation that I want to share today is this almost like, I want you to know it's all going to be okay. Always. And even though it doesn't feel okay in the moment, that's also okay. It doesn't need to. You don't need to have it all together all the time. But what we need to get better at is feeling our way through, is fully feeling, not being scared of people expressing emotion, not being scared of our own emotion, and noticing that the space that it creates and the openness that it opens up and the depth that it allows us to go within our own world, within our own inner experience. And so when I talk about the inner experience, I talk about getting intimate with our own inner world, because then it creates a life that we want to live. It creates a human being that we are becoming, that we want to be in this world. And you're not going to get there by avoiding your feelings. You're not going to get there by avoiding what's real in the moment. And that's a practice, it's a muscle that we get to develop. But this podcast today is here to share with you that feeling what feels true for you in the moment, even if it feels hard, can just be a little muscle flex that you need to take right now to get used to. That we're so attached to the how. We're so attached to, can you tell me what I need to do to be more aware, to be more confident, to be more fulfilled? Can you give me the steps that I need to take? And the only step, like you already know what it is, but you just have this blanket statement of, I don't know, because underneath the I don't know is a feeling that feels hard. And so if you can sit in the I don't know long enough to feel the feeling that's coming up and rising, releasing that feeling is literally creating space within your system to access wisdom and gold that you are literally calling out for. So the external doesn't have the answers that you're looking for. You have the answers you're looking for. It's just if you're willing to go there to allow it to come out. So community is here. Unity is here. Love and support is all around. And it's our ability to really receive it and let it in. And that's part of the feminine healing. That's part of the feminine rising. We can't do this without the both masculine and feminine energies working as one. But we definitely can't do it without allowing ourselves to feel fully. If you're experiencing any type of fear right now in life, if you have ever experienced fear, guarantee that the truth beneath that was a fear of feeling something that felt uncomfortable. So the invitation here is to feel your way through it, knowing that I'm right here holding your hand, knowing that we're creating this space right now in this community here with the inner experience to allow you to feel supported in feeling some hard things. Because when we feel some hard things, it's like bridges the gap between what's possible. And I'm here to push the veils on potential, on possibility, on the way that we live, because I really believe that we're here for a reason. We're here for a mission. We're here for a soul purpose, and you get to live a life that lights you up. And if that sounds woo-woo, that if you want to roll your eyes at that, then fuck, like, I invite you to do some work. Like, come with us on this journey, because if you're listening right now, there's a hot chance that you want to. So that's what I really wanted to share today. Please reach out if you need some support. And I hope that you found this valuable and almost like a permission slip to let go of what you think you need to be and just sit in a moment of silence and stillness to appreciate what's available to you within your own inner world. Sending you lots of love.